sometimes people find out that I have training as an opera singer, and they'll ask me things like, can Adele sing? I'll just be like, are you kidding me? Like, and the same thing is true, for you, obviously. I mean, I've heard you sing, and your technique is astonishing, as I'm sure it was when you first came to Interlochen. But there's still this whole, like, in the music industry, there's just this whole like expectation of what you should be in a bucket or, in a genre. And so I just wondered, like, was it partly that experience that then gave you the confidence to make some of the other choices later down the road, or was that just a blip? And how did that experience kind of set you up for the things that came later?
I loved Interlochen. All very talented kids, all incredibly disciplined and talented. I was so excited to take advantage of all the opportunities there that I wanted to double major and double minor. And that wasn't allowed. You're allowed to have one major. And all of a sudden I was wanting to not only double major, but double minor on top of it. And again, I get called back into the dean's office, and he was like, Joel, you can't do this. Like, you're just spreading yourself too thin. And I just was like, this is my one shot. I don't know if I get to come back here next year. And this is my one chance. You have to let me absorb everything I can here. And bless his heart, he let me. And my voice teacher let me skip my vocal lessons with the promise that I would show up for my recitals. And so same thing, she would teach. I never did learn music. So she would sing them for me on my cassette player. And I'm a good mimic. I always was able to mimic well. And that really is what taught me to sing. And something I really encourage singers to do is listen to singers that you really love, and then get yourself to mimic them. Because if you're listening to Ella Fitzgerald, who's coincidentally an incredibly correct singer, she sounded great until the day she died.
Mm-hmm.
She had great technique. I didn't have to learn the technical way of positioning. I just had to learn to mimic her. And by doing that, I was getting my throat in naturally good positions. And then I looked at each singer as like a color that I wanted to learn. And so Nancy Griffith, I don't know if anybody knows her, she's a really light, really innocent sounding voice. And so I learned that color. And then I learned kind of the heavy vibrato of, Emmylou Harris. The operatic style, mind you, in my opinion, of Sarah Vaughan, who creates so much width that if you can learn how to do that, you're going to learn to correctly and using a ton of air to get the amount of sustain that she has. So I kind of taught myself to sing by passionately trying to mimic the singers that I really admired. And if you're going to get those notes to last that long and get the tone to change while the notes are changing, you're going to have to figure out technically how to do all that. All that to say, my vocal teacher, you do run a risk. I just want to say, if you're going to overtrain, you run the risk of becoming incredibly general sounding or homogenous sounding, singing like a trained singer. Once you become past, I think, a certain amount of training, it's hard for those singers to sing another style, which is fine, right? If that's what you're doing. But I remember bringing my, vocal teacher in, who was a well-known opera singer, and she tried to sing jazz standards and she sang them like an opera singer. She's like, it wasn't, it's the only style she could sing eventually. And so that's just like, sometimes Broadway singers have a hard time not singing like a Broadway singer. So it's just kind of knowing like, which career do you want to go into? And if you're a parent trying to help your child, sometimes letting them discover their own voice and their unique characters is sometimes the most important thing you can do.